Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our National Fossil Day, Fossil Friday. Well, it's not Fossil Friday. Whew, I don't know what day it is. Our National Fossil Day live stream, where we are touring museums across the country. So, this event is presented by the Alf Museum of Paleontology and the Western Science Center. We're your hosts, Brittany Stoneberg, and as always, with me, Gabe Santos.
Hello.
So, for today's event, we are asking the question, why are museum collections important? For a lot of people, we think about the exhibits on display when we think about a museum. But to answer that question about why museum collections are important, we have to go behind the scenes. So that's what we're going to do today. We'll be taking a virtual trip to museum collections across the US, and they'll also have paleontologists available to answer your questions about those collections. Just as a reminder, we are still in a global pandemic, so we have made sure that everybody who's participating today has taken the necessary precautions, isolating or anything else, masks, whatever, to make sure that everyone participating today is safe. A lot of the museums here are still closed, so this is a great opportunity to kind of see what is still happening behind the scenes while a lot of us are closed to the public. So today we're actually joined by Callie Moore. Hello,
Hi,
Callie.
Kelly.
Hello! Hello, hello! I'm so excited to be here. This is such a cool thing that you guys put on. What an event! What an event! How many museums did you have participate in this?
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
my silly brain decided to do 10 for the day.
Oh!
So, yeah, it's fun so far. I think it's going to be great. Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is cool. This is very cool.
thank
yeah.
you
So
so much.
Callie, yeah, Callie's going to show us the University of Montana Paleontology collection today.
Yep, yep. And I had to pre-record this because we have like no Wi-Fi in the basement.
That's
So, uh,
upstairs. Every museum collection is like, well, we don't really have Wi-Fi, so we made it work.
we made it work. Yeah. So I hope you enjoy the video.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this because I've been wanting to go visit that collection too. So, it's going to be really cool to see
Same.
what you got in there. Okay, so are we ready? Let's go start the video.
Yep.
And just a reminder, after the pre-recorded tour, we're going to have a live Q&A with Callie. So make sure you put your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them after the tour. And here we go on our next stop.
Hi, I'm Callie Moore, and I manage the paleontology collection at the University of Montana in Missoula. We're located in the basement of the Charles H. Clapp building on campus, which is why I'm doing this pre recorded. We have really bad Wi Fi down here. For a little background, the collection started basically with the university in the late 1890s. In fact, the very first master's degree issued by the university was based on paleontological research. The collection contains microfossils, plants, invertebrates, and vertebrates from over 20 different countries and spans over 2 billion years. We haven't finished our full inventory yet, but it's estimated we have about 50,000 specimens. And behind me, you can see some of the 191 cases that houses this collection. In 2008, the collections room was renovated and a space saver compactor system was installed. This compactor system increased our storage capacity but decreased the footprint needed to store all the specimens. But the really cool thing about this system is that it moves with a touch of a button. The two middle stacks can move independently of one another, allowing me to have one large aisle or two smaller aisles open at the same time. And today I'm going to highlight some of our major collections, the Bear Gulch, the Triassic Corals, and the Cenozoic Mammals. Let's start with the oldest of the three, the Carboniferous Bear Gulch. The Bear Gulch limestone is about 320 million years old, and it's located near the geographical center of our state. It was discovered in the late 1960s and researched pretty heavily throughout the 1970s and 80s. Fossils from this locality are amazingly preserved and even include soft tissues like organs. Now, the collection contains a lot of type specimens from this formation, like holotypes and paratypes. Holotypes are the specimens used to name a new species, and paratypes are additional specimens used in the naming process. The first specimen we're going to look at today is one of the most enigmatic fossils in the entire collection. It's called Typhloesis, and researchers really are not sure what this is. Is it a vertebrate? Is it a chordate? Is it not? Is it a fish? Is it a worm? We're not exactly sure. There's still researchers working on this guy today. Now, it has a really fun history. For a long time, people thought that this was the conodont animal, actually. So, conodonts, we now know, are these little tiny worms, and they have these microscopic, scary teeth structures. They're called conodont apparatus. And where we find them in this specimen is somewhere in what we think of as the gut. So these are thought of as conodont eating animals. So they would have eaten these microscopic worms, and then their little apparatus got caught in their gut. But we have really no idea. These are very, very strange creatures. The next fossil is from probably one of the strangest sharks in the entire Carboniferous, which is saying something because there were a lot of weird sharks in the Carboniferous. This one happens to be Stethacanthes. Stethacanthes was a pretty weird shark. It had this giant anvil-shaped feature on the top of its head, kind of stuck out like a mohawk. And if you looked real close, maybe with a microscope, you could see there's almost like tiny little shark teeth along the top of this structure. This is known as a spine brush complex, and it's just bizarre. This shark would have been maybe 5-6 feet long when it was alive. The next specimen I'm going to show you might be one of my favorites from the whole collection, but it's definitely my favorite from the Bear Gulch. And that's this little guy right here. This is Echinochimera. It's a type of chimerid shark. Now, this species shows a lot of sexual dimorphism, so the male and females look way different. And in this case, we're looking at a male, and we can tell from this really pronounced dorsal fin, so the fin on the back body. Now, we think that this species was able to lift this dorsal fin up and down, and there was lots of little spikes on it, so it might have been a display feature. But these are incredibly preserved. The tiniest little scales that you guys probably can't see are even preserved. This is such a cool fish. The last specimen I'm going to show you from the Bear Gulch is of Alenopterus montanus. This is a species of coelacanth, but it's a very strange coelacanth. So coelacanths are lobed-finned fishes as opposed to ray-finned fishes like a trout or a salmon. And this one is very teardrop-shaped, and it had a downwards facing mouth. And so researchers think that this would go along and pick stuff up off the bottom of the sea floor. So it would go along and rest and pick something up and rest and lay on the sea floor. It also has kind of armored belly scales too that helped with that theory. But you can see it's very teardrop shaped. I call this the hunchback coelacanth because of this big kind of hump on its back. But the Bear Gulch has a lot of different coelacanths. Today we basically just have one species, maybe 2 subspecies of coelacanth. But 320 million years ago, we had like 10 species of coelacanths. The next collection we'll look at are the Triassic corals. These specimens were mainly collected by Professor Emeritus Dr. George Stanley and are from the late Triassic, about 237 to 201 million years ago. During this time, coral and everything else had finally recovered from the largest mass extinction event of all time at the end of the Permian. It's also when our modern Scleractinian or stony coral evolved, which is the focus of this collection. So, you ready to see some coral? The first specimen we're going to look at is called Distinctophilia, and it is a giant solitary coral. So today we think of coral as being colonial and very tiny little animals, but in the past there were some pretty big solitary coral. So there would have been one single coral polyp living in this structure that it built. These specimens were all collected in the early 1930s by a man named Norman Silberling. And this collection was actually transferred to us because of Dr. Stanley's research from the USGS. One way researchers study coral is by making a thin section. And the specimen that I'm going to use to demonstrate thin section making is from Austria. And it's actually not of a coral, it's of a sponge and a straight nautiloid, but it's a really pretty specimen, so it's okay. So to make a thin section, you take a rock that has fossils in it, and you cut it apart. In this case, one side was polished, so here is the sponge and here is the straight nautiloid. You take the other piece of rock and you glue it to a piece of glass. You cut off the excess rock with a saw and file down the rest of that rock until you can see light through it. So here's the thin section. From there, we can take this thin section and look at it underneath a microscope and look at all the internal structure of coral, or in this case, a sponge. Another technique that researchers use to study coral is acid etching. So we can take a chunk of limestone and dunk it into a tank of acetic acid, usually acetic acid. And that acid is just strong enough to eat away the limestone, but it leaves the coral intact. And the reason why the corals stay intact is because they've been silicified. So the original coral material has been replaced with silica. This specimen is called Phyllocellostylophyllum, and it was collected in Peru. Now, after the acid etching process, it does leave the specimen slightly more brittle, which is why I'm not picking this up to show it to you. The last specimens I'll be showing you today are from the Cenozoic mammal collection that spans from about 45 million years ago to just 9,000 years ago, but most of the specimens are from the Oligocene and Miocene epochs. During this time, Montana was transitioning from a forested environment to a more open grassland. And the fossils are reminiscent of an African savanna. We had horses and rhinos and camels and elephants roaming around Montana. This is one of my favorite collections, so let's take a look. The specimens in this drawer are from Montana and were collected in a gravel pit, and they're probably about 10 million years old. These two specimens here are the left and right lower jaw of a juvenile rhino called Teleoceras. This is the skull of a different individual, but it's also of a juvenile rhino. These rhinos had really short legs and big giant round potbellies, and we think they might have lived the same life as a hippo, so staying close to a watering hole, wallowing most of the day away. Sounds pretty good. The rest of the specimens in this case are part of a four-tusked elephant known as Ambelodon. What we're seeing here is part of the sacrum, the top of the hip known as the iliac crest, the socket joint for the hip, and a few other pieces of the hip and sacrum. Ambelodon was a type of elephant that had four tusks. So it had the two normal tusks coming out of the top jaw, but then it also had two lower tusks coming out of the bottom jaw. This next specimen is also from the same locality, and it's a broken upper tusk of one of those Ambelodons. And the reason why I wanted to show this to you is because this is fossilized ivory, and all elephant tusks grow in a concentric way, and they leave a very characteristic pattern on the ivory. So if you look here, you can see that cross-hatching pattern. This pattern is found on all elephant ivory. Again, this is 10 million year old ivory. It still has the cross-hatching pattern. The last specimen I'm going to show you today is a partial skull of an oreodont known as Megaoreodon, so a really big oreodont. Oreodonts are weird and they're hard to describe because they're an extinct lineage, so there's no relatives alive today. The best description I've heard used to describe what one of these might have looked like is the combination of a sheep, a pig, and a dog. I'm not sure if that helps, but it is kind of accurate. Let's look at this specimen. So again, this is a partial skull of Megaoreodon, and it was collected in Beavertail County, Montana. Here is the nostril, and these would be the incisors, the canines, although this was probably a herbivore, and the eyes would be right back here. This is the zygomatic arch, and it has really great teeth. We can tell this was probably an older individual because of how far down the teeth are worn. And this was probably a male individual because the relatively large upper canines. Thanks so much, everybody, for following along on this tour of the University of Montana Paleontology Collection. Be sure to leave your questions for me in the comments, and I'll get to them shortly.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Callie. That was an amazing tour of your collections.
Thanks. I wish I could have shown more. 15 minutes goes so fast, you know. So I was trying to find specimens because we have some really neat tiny stuff, but you can't see that very well on screen. So I had to kind of focus on some of our larger specimens that you could actually, see on video. But yeah, we've got a lot of cool stuff, and like that was just this tip of the iceberg, just scratching the surface there.
I think that's...
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to show any museum collection in 15 minutes or less.
Oh no.
No.
I think that's like the important part of today is like to show like museum collections are huge. Like whatever we really see on display is such a small part, and to understand the importance of museums, you have to know that a lot of what we don't see, unfortunately, is behind the scenes, and like that's what makes a museum a museum.
Right, for sure. Yeah, we have like a teeny little bitty itty bitty bit on display. Like a lot of the stuff we actually have on display is too big to fit into the collection. So like it has to go on display. Like there's nowhere to put it. So we have very limited capabilities. So but yeah, this was fun. This is great. I'm so excited that you guys are doing this and allowing the public, like this. Usually for National Fossil Day, I have a big public event. I invite the public to come see the collection, and I have scheduled tours and people buy tickets, and so being able to do basically that only virtually was fun. It was kind of a nice change of pace from doing the same event every single year. So it was all right. I'm okay with COVID right now.
Well, there's always next year.
Yeah. Speaking of our audience, let's get some questions. You ready, Brittany?
Yep, alrighty. So one of the first questions was, you are on a university campus, so do students have access to these collections?
Yeah, for the most part, yes. If they're doing research and they need to see something, or if they're in a class and they need some supplemental material, for sure they can reach out to me. But just like walking down the hall and popping in and being like, can I just look at stuff? No. It needs to be a little bit more formal. Contact me first, ask me what you want to see. So that also lets me find what you want first. So I know where like 98% of everything is in the collection, but every once in a while something eludes me and it could take me a little while to find it. So for the most part, yes, but you just can't like walk out on the street and come hang out in the collection. But we used to, it will start again after COVID, volunteer program. And a lot of my volunteers are students. And so that's one way that students can be in the collection and check it out and work with me and the fossils.
Do you want to hear a funny story about that really quick? So,
yes.
Okay, so our museum collection, of course, you have to have permission to enter. But we do have guests to the museum who have to go in through the front entrance. But by random circumstance one day, the downstairs entrance was open because we were moving stuff from a car to the collections. And because it was open, a guest who was a college student came to the museum and thought that was the front entrance and walked in and then walked into the collections room because it was open. And I walk out of my office. I'm like, hello? Who are you? She's like, oh, I'm just touring the museum. I was like, are you? And so like I had to like figure out who she was. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. You went to the wrong entrance. So I had to guide her back upstairs. She was so apologetic. I was like, that's totally fine. This was a one-off instance. We're much more careful, obviously, for closing the door, and we're always careful. This was just some one random happenstance, but it was so funny because like I walked out of my office and we locked eyes, and we were both like, she was like, I shouldn't be here, and I was like, you shouldn't be here, and it was just like, okay.
Oh, that's funny. I used to leave my collection door cracked, so when volunteers would come, they could just walk right in, and it was cracked, and we don't have any windows, so it's just like a big wooden door that's cracked open. You can't really see, but there are no bathrooms on the first floor of our building. This building is a nightmare and a half, but so you either have to go to the second floor or the basement, and so I'm in the basement, so we get a lot of foot traffic going down to the basement, and I can't tell you how many times people have just like pushed open the door and been like, so what's in here? I'm like, this is the paleo collection. It's pretty cool. Now get out, please. But yeah, nowadays I just keep everything shut, and there's like 5 students on campus anyways, so nobody
Yep.
has time for me right now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alrighty. Here's a question from Grant. How do you conserve your fossil ivory?
There's not a lot you got to do to it. I think those specimens that I showed have some kind of old epoxy. Those specimens were collected, I think in the early 1960s, maybe 1962, 1963. And paleontologists loved to cover every single fossil in a 2-part epoxy back in the day. I mean, that was the thing.
Oh
You
my
could not bring
gosh.
anything from the field without covering it with this nasty goo. And today it has yellowed and it's gross, or it's turned brown and it's a pain to get off. But I believe that tusk has been coated in epoxy. But, tusk material is enamel, it is a tooth. And teeth are the hardest substance in our body, and they're the most often found fossil because of how durable they are. So there's not a whole lot you have to do to conserve a tooth. If it's broken, if it's fragile, you glue it. And we have some much fancier consolidant nowadays that doesn't have any preservatives in it, and it's really nice, and it won't yellow over time. And so you can coat it in that to help keep it together. But for the most part, it's just fine hanging out on its own, unconsolidated, no goo, just in a drawer. Yep.
I have a question from Instagram that's related to that.
Cool.
Callie, what are your favorite adhesives for preparation?
Ooh, I am a fan. I kind of started my paleo career with Paleo Bond, the company Paleo Bond. And I know there are some people that have their own opinions about it, but since I started with it, I'm most comfortable with it. So I usually use their products. My favorite kind of consolidant is paraloid. So I think it's like these little beads, like basically they look like plastic beads, and you put them in acetone, and it creates what I call a liquid plastic wrap. And so you can just put it on the specimen. It's really nice. It's good for fossils. There's no preservatives. So that's usually what I use, is the Paleo Bond products. And it's just, and their customer service is really great. I've had some questions about like, ooh, I don't know if I should get this viscosity for this project, and I can send them pictures of my project and the fossil, and they'll get back to me and they're like, ooh, I think you should use probably this, and then this, and maybe some of this, to help. So their customer service is also really good. So that's usually what I use.
Nice. I we
So.
use we use Paraloid B72 in our museum as well, and yeah, it's basically like a plastic film. One time the bottle had like broken as I was gluing, and I had like a plastic film all over my hand.
Oh
It's like
no.
pulling off like
Yeah, the
sunburned
glue.
skin. It's
Yeah,
like
or
it's the weirdest stuff. Yeah.
or like the glue when you were a child and you'd pour glue on your hands just so you could peel it off when it dried.
Right. It's very, very similar. Yep. And so yeah, we use those B72 beads as well. I usually purchase them through, like I said, Paleo Bond, but there's a lot of different companies that make them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Here's another question. Is there an online catalog or website that people can visit to see the kinds of things that are in your collection?
Oh my gosh, yes. Why didn't I put that in the video? Well, I guess it's a perfect question now. But yes, you can search our online collection, and it's pretty good. I think we've got about 40,000 entries, but like I said in the video, we have an estimated 50,000 specimens. So that's my estimate, because we have 40,000 specimens on the collection, and I'm assuming we have like 10,000 uncurated specimens from like forever ago that just haven't been curated. That's why I guessed 50,000. But you can find us. hs.umt.edu/paleo. And if you scroll down on our home screen, you click the collections button and then search collections. And it's just like a Google search bar. You can type in like horse or mammoth or whatever, and it'll bring up everything that we have from that collection. We do hide certain things from the general public, so specific locality details are hidden, so you don't get driving directions or latitude or longitude or anything like that, but you do get county, age, formation, some of the basics, and usually a picture of the object if we've photographed it. So, but yes, so you can search our website.
Yeah, Callie, after this Q&A, would you be able to put that in the chat?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll include it in the descriptions too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
great, thanks.
All righty. Do you have another one from social media, Gabe?
Not right now, but I see some really good ones on
Yeah, there's
chat.
some good ones in here. This next question is really cute. It's from Maya, who is 10 years old.
Ooh.
And they say you could probably guess their favorite dinosaur, because what is the best Maiasaura fossil in your collection?
Ooh.
And do you have, or how many do you have as well?
So, our collection is not the dinosaur collection. So, Montana State University, about 3 hours to the southeast of us in Bozeman, they are the dinosaur campus. So, they're the ones that have all the Maiasaur stuff. We have a little bit in our collection that is ID'd as hadrosaur. So, it could be a Maiasaur. It might be Critosaurus. It might be Hadrosaurus. I don't know who Hadrosaurid it is, but it could be Maiasaur. I believe we do have some eggshell fragments of Maiasaura in our collection. But for the most part, we don't focus on dinosaurs. And historically, our collection has really never focused on dinosaur material. We've always had other specialists. So we've had paleobotanists, vertebrate paleontologists, but they focused on mammals, and invertebrate paleontologists, I know. And so that's basically what you see in our collection is invertebrates, non-dinosaur vertebrates, and plants are in our collection. So I wish we had a bunch of Maiasaura since it's our state fossil, but I'll just have to hang out with Amy Atwater, I guess, in her collection with all the Maiasaur. Shucky darn.
Oh no, you have to hang out with Amy? What a terrible day.
You love Amy.
Oh, I want to hang out with Amy. Dang it.
I know.
We should all just go and meet up like halfway and just all hang out.
We were talking before the live stream about a Montana trip, so when COVID's over, so.
Heck yeah. Come on up.
Maya says, that's okay. All fossils are awesome. Oh, thank you, Maya. You have it right.
Yes, agreed to agree.
I think we have time for one more question, Britt.
Okay, cool. This question is, do you have any suggestions for a master's student in history who loves paleontology but hasn't had a chance to study it?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you could go with this. If you just want to be more into paleontology as an amateur, I would encourage you to become a volunteer at a local museum. Join local rock and gem clubs. You can go out into the field with people who know what they're doing and go collect fossils. Start a fossil blog, start a fossil Instagram, there are a lot of different ways to be a non-professional in paleontology and just be part of the paleo nerd community. It's a really big community and we're very welcoming of everyone. So if you just want to be more involved, that's what I would encourage you to do, is become a volunteer at a museum and to join your local rock and paleo clubs. If you don't have any of those, maybe join one remotely, and then when you have some vacation time, you can join them on a trip then. The other thing I was thinking, though, since you're already a master's student in history, there's a lot of history in paleontology itself. The study of paleontology goes back to, dang, like the late 1700s, basically, with curiosity cabinets, and then it gets really crazy in the early to mid 1800s with the Western expansion, and then the dinosaur renaissance in the 1960s, and now we're in the dinosaur revolution right now. I mean, it has changed a lot. And so you could really lean into your strengths here, with your history background and your history knowledge, to look at a project that has to do with paleo, but it's a history-based project. One thing that's really kind of coming to the forefront right now, especially just with all of the civil discourse, is how many fossils were taken from native lands, from indigenous peoples, like they were moved off of their lands or killed, So we have a lot of thanks and gratitude to give to these people, from taking stuff without permission or recognition from their land. So that could be a project right there, just showing America how deep our collections, our paleontology collections, go with the history of this country, pre-white people history of this country. So I think there's a lot of different ways you could really hit that question. Just it depends on how far you want to go with it. Do you want to be more of a professional paleo writer in history, or do you just want to be part of the club? But either way, or both, I guess, would be great. And good luck with that, though. Good luck.
Yeah. Believe me, as somebody who has personally switched disciplines, you can definitely do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like I said, a lot of paleontology is historical. I mean, most collections have jackets, plaster jackets, so what we keep the fossils in, they're like 30 years old and they've never been cracked open, So just in a paleontology collection, a backlogging of stuff that needs to be done. I mean, that's history right there. So yeah, there's a lot.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Callie. That was a great tour through your collections. We had a great time. Yeah, we had an absolute great time learning about everything in your collections. And like I said, I'm ready to go to Montana and see it in person when it's safe to do so.
I'm ready to have you up here, for sure.
So if anybody would like to learn more about your museum or more about your other efforts, because you are the co-host of PBS Eons, where can people go to do that?
So you can either find us online, so you'll drop the link in for our collection if you want to check out more of our collection, and then obviously youtube.com/eons if you want to watch some Eons episodes and check out our work there. And then tonight we have a big event. We're capping off National Fossil Day with a virtual tour. So a night at the virtual museum at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. All three hosts, myself, Blake, and our new host, Michelle, will be battling it out. We're going to be doing a scavenger hunt through their virtual museum, and it's going to be a really good time. Dr. Matt Carano, the curator of Dinosauria, is going to be our MC for the night. It's going to be fun. You're going to hear some smack talking. Whoever wins is the champion of deep time and has one day to the year to brag about their status. And so it's going to be, there's a lot on the line tonight. There's a lot on the line.
I'm excited to join.
All right. So thank you again. That does it for this stop. So next at 11 a.m., we're heading to the Calvert Marine Museum. So join us in about half an hour and we'll be going live again. So if you would like to support this program and the others that we do through the Western Science Center and through the Raymond M. Alf Museum of Paleontology, you can find links in the description to do so. You can also learn more about National Fossil Day from the National Park Service. You can visit nps.gov to be able to do that. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of the videos that we have today and in the future. So thank you, everybody.
Bye.